Hello and welcome to View from the Top. I am Modile Sharafa Yusuf and I'm glad that you could join us today. Today we'll be bringing you what I can call a double header. I will be speaking with two people who have made positive contributions to the development of Nigeria, one in education and the other in judiciary. My guests are Professor Grace Alele-Williams and retired Justice Mustafa Kombi. Professor Alele-Williams is a woman of many firsts, as you will see in this brief biography before we get down to our discussion. Professor Alele-Williams, thank you for joining us on View from the Top.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let me start by asking you what your thoughts are on the current state of education in Nigeria.
There are a lot of things we could improve. For instance, what we are teaching, how we are teaching, the management of the schools in many cases. The fact that there is so much thought and so much work by our government and so much spending on education by various state governments in the country, and yet many people will tell you that the private schools, not all of them of course, but many private schools are so much better than our government schools and take precedence in outside examinations and in the results parents seem to get from their children. However, they are expensive. I mean the private schools, both primary and secondary. On the other hand, there are some private schools that are not worth the name.
Do you reckon that government is doing enough for education?
Government is doing a lot. I don't know how you would measure enough, but so much money seems to be spent, and they're spending so much money. But don't forget, on education, but don't forget that the population is increasing, population of children in schools. The population is increasing, whether at the pre-primary level or primary level or secondary level, or what they call basic education now. And don't forget, too, that a decade or so ago, basic education was not considered a government responsibility, but today it is. So in many states, the government has a lot more work to do.
Should education be free?
Well, it depends on the philosophy a country has had for many years. I think every country should bear the cost of ensuring that their young children can read and write, and at the basic first level, well, second level it would be in this case if we introduce pre-primary education, should be able to read and write. Yes, that is free. That should be free.
Talking about curriculum, mathematics is one of the subjects that students love to hate, but you are a professor of mathematics. How do you help children get over their fear of math?
It is not so difficult. It is not a difficult subject. It is an interesting subject. It is a subject, however, which lends itself very easily to cramming and rote memorization just to know a few things to write. It lends itself to that, but it should not be that. And when it is not that, it becomes a very, very interesting subject where a child learns by discovery, learns by doing things, learns by forming new rules and regulations together, learns by examining things and saying, oh, multiplication is not 3 times 4, but it could be 4 3s put together or 3 4s put together. And that is learning something about something in mathematics which normally wouldn't come out, especially except the child has a teacher who is busy with experimenting and getting the children to discover facts for themselves.
You rose to become a vice chancellor of the University of Benin, the first woman vice-chancellor in Nigeria. The glass ceiling is a political term used to describe the unseen yet unbreakable barrier that keeps women from rising to the upper rungs of a corporate ladder, regardless of their qualifications and achievements. Has the glass ceiling really been shattered in Nigeria?
Well, it has been shattered in many respects. A glass ceiling quite often denotes a point where many women, whatever the skills they learn, whatever vocations, whatever areas in higher education they have achieved, there's a sort of stop there. But with teaching, with science, with some professions, the tenacity of many women and their ability to cope with the home, marriage, and their work, which many of them find very interesting, has meant they can compete, and they have competed very successfully with men. And in the past 3 decades, particularly in African countries, when we had first the Women's Conference in, actually it was the second, in East Africa, Nairobi. At the end of that conference, there are many resolutions which women put together to say, no, we are not going to get to a point and then we can't move further up. But if we can do the work, give us an opportunity to rise. Fortunately for Nigeria, it came at a time when we had just had, what shall I say, bloodless revolution, and then the chairman or president of the coalition of women's societies in Nigeria was led by Mrs. Ade Farasi. She was very persistent because the new head of state had made a few promises. One of them was that in every state, the governor should have a committee, a subcommittee, a board, a council of 10 persons, of which at least one must be a woman. Well, it's not easy to, it's not difficult in any state at that, it wasn't difficult at that time to find a woman who had done well in education, well in the social sciences, well in medicine, to be appointed to such a position. But when all the states did that, the federal did not put a woman on its own list of 10 ministers. And Mrs. Ade Farasi, at every opportunity, came forward with this statement: where is the woman on the Federal Council? I think at that time, there was also a vacancy for vice chancellorship in the University of Benin. No woman, to my knowledge, cared even to think about it. But I think the head of state may have been advised to say, you know, they are clamoring for this post. Why don't you put a woman there? I'm not saying that was how it went, but it could be. And somebody said, oh, why not? Yes. And I think the head of said, okay, bring me a woman. And I think a few women's names came up on such a list. And he was surprised, I'm told, about women being, I mean, you have women who can do such a position. They've been deans or they've been in the university for so many years. They have children, and yet they have been professors for a long time. And I guess I just fell into the position. And that's how I became one. But since that time, many women have competed in their universities to become vice chancellors, and some have won.
My experience is that women tend to work twice as hard to get half the credit that men get on the job. Was this your experience too, and when you were still in active service?
Well, I'll say this for women. We women, when we get to a position, like to be thorough. And many women who go past that stage, you'll find, are very thorough, economical, very desperately, pointedly, vigorous, and directed. Well planning, because they have to do this to move up. I mean, You can't come back and say, Huzzy, I love you, but go to the kitchen. And if you are not going to do that, you have to make provisions for it. And it just turns out that once you are in that line, you tend to do extremely well. And since the men have the common tie, we don't have that. We have to do extra work to be seen and to be voted in, even at the lower levels. And quite often, many of us are multi-taxing ourselves to be in such positions, and we come out and are noted.
On a personal note, Professor Alele-Williams, what did you have to give up to get to where you got to as a career woman?
Well, I was 31 before I married. My colleagues from secondary school were all married. I don't know if that's giving up something. But by the time I came back, I think, as I said, I was 31. I had worked in the university for 6 years in America, same time as I was teaching. And I was just lucky that I had gone through the American system at a time when things were going on in America. So that brought together the opportunities for me to work, get experience, and earn money. 1, 2, a lot of experiences that improved, that were seeking to improve mathematics education and mathematics, and I was participating in all this. So I don't know that I can say I gave up much. Rather, maybe things just went in that way. But for 6 years in America, I gave up family, gave up a lot of friendship. It was a bit lonesome in America. Yes.
So Alele-Williams, so thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We will have to take a break now. We ask that you please join us again after this break.